And the room is cool, so that's good because we have more people in. And it's cold outside, but we're back. And Chris, where's Chris? Was there some modification to the agenda? Was there something was walked on?
There was a walk-on for
Personnel.
Personnel report, yes.
report.
Right, and so we'll add that to consent, correct?
correct.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you for reminding me.
And it's my job, and public comment period, and so, we do have some folks signed up, and Pat, once again, because she is on fire, is going to help me with this, so,
Okay, the first person signed up is Jim Yagi.
Good evening.
evening, Jim.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak. Take a seat. Okay. Yeah, my name is Jim Yagi. I'm a parent of two ICSD students, former Scholastic coach, and a football enthusiast. And as many of you know, football in our community is in crisis mode. It has been for the past several years. I represent a group of parents and former coaches that would like to change that in our community and try to save the sport that we love. We have been in a transition period with Coach Welch, and we're in support of that. We had an opportunity to meet with Coach Welch and brainstorm some ideas to try to come up with some recruiting events that really focus on drawing numbers to football again for our Scholastic teams, mainly using the current players and the families as the active marketers for bumping the numbers for the sport. We have come up with a schedule of events, and if you'll indulge me, I'd like to share just a few of those with you just as we lay out our intentions and needs, if that's okay. Again, mainly we're looking at trying to develop events where they bring a friend. Take a player that's been playing with us to try to draw out a player that used to play, or bring new players back to the sport, and engage the families in a different way. Part of these events, for instance, we have our first event that we discussed with the coaching staff in the first weekend of February that revolves around the Super Bowl. A Bring a Friend event where we have a viewing party and try to develop and build on the momentum of football and try to bring a friend and draw more interest into the sport. And then have a series of 5 events that would culminate with 2 others. The spring clinic that we have that Coach Welch and the staff typically has in June. And then the final event would be a signing day event that we hold in July, which would be 1 month before the start date of IHS sports. The signing day would be something that we try to build excitement, have hot spots available for families to sign up for Family ID, and again, try to draw interest and bump numbers to try to save the sport and football in this town. The basics of what we're asking are support. We're approaching a time where our fields are going to be under construction. We may have some needs for facility space, especially in the winter months as we're trying to develop these activities and need access to gyms. We may need some help with advertising and outreach to some of the families. And if accessible or possible, some small pots of funding to help pay for food or t-shirts to try to incentivize some people as they come to these events. And we're also open to suggestions. This is really a groundswell effort. We're trying to work with the coaching staff to bump the interest in the sport and make it thrive. So we're open to comments as well. Any support you can offer, comments you can offer, would be grateful as we move forward in this endeavor.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
And board responses in a little bit, so.
Awesome, thank you.
Very good.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jim.
Dinesh Gora.
Hi, my name is Dinesh Gera. I'm a PhD in engineering and a master's in math. I have 2 children. One is 16, who is a sophomore at college, and the other one is 9, who is at Cayuga Heights Elementary School. Complete different spectrums of life, okay? My simple question for the board and for the superintendent is, what is the minimum age to go as a full-time college student in the United States, in New York, state of New York, or in Ithaca, if they are different? I think the answer is the same, but whichever you guys are comfortable with, to give me that answer, and then I'll start my case on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Is it Joshua Ha?
No, I crossed it out, sorry.
Oh.
I thought it was this.
I thought you were just saying
Thank you for signing in, I appreciate that.
Would you like to make a comment?
I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you.
Denise Gelberg.
I'm Denise Gilbert. I taught in the school district from 1976 to 2006 in 4 of the district's elementary schools. And I'm here representing the retirees on the issue of health insurance. I have copies of the letter that can be distributed afterwards to the board and the administration. It's now been 2 years since most Medicare eligible retirees were moved from the district's Blue Cross Blue Shield plan to Medicare Part F and Part D plans, and 9 months since those retirees who elected to opt out of such a move were involuntarily moved to those same plans. These moves were accomplished with the district's assurance that the health benefit would be equal to or better than existed under the Blue Cross Blue Shield plan in effect at the time of retirement, and that any gaps in health benefit coverage would be covered by the district. Most coverage has been adequately and smoothly processed. However, there have been a number of instances where Medicare Parts F and D did not cover items formerly covered by the Blues. These instances have created both confusion and frustration among retirees, as no procedures and documentation appear to have been developed by the district or its consultant for distribution to all Medicare retirees on how to expeditiously file a claim with the district to pay a provider invoice. A few examples of situations previously covered by the Blues and not covered by Medicare's Part D and F include a breast cancer survivor being denied coverage for more than 1 mammography in a 12-month period. Under the Blues, the coverage for a breast cancer survivor only requires a physician's recommendation for more frequent mammograms. Another example, a leukemia victim denied a 90-day supply of a specialty pharmacy chemotherapy drug, routinely covered under the Blues. It required 4 months to resolve and was fixed with a special pre-authorization override that must be renewed and is therefore not a permanent fix. Another example, an individual taking a medication for several years to successfully treat a medical condition was denied coverage unless they first took a different drug or different drugs for a specified period of time and failed, a situation where administrators and pharmacists override a physician's medical decision and potentially jeopardize the health of that individual. These are just a few examples. These examples are types of situations that were either known or should have been known by the district and or its consultant performing a due diligence comparison of the health plans. The documents initially sent to retirees did not include specific information from the district with regard to processing items not covered by the new plans that were formerly covered by the Blues. Where formerly there were only 2 entities in the claims payment stream, Medicare and then Blue Cross, the district by its own action has expanded that to 3 entities. First Medicare, then Hartford Supplemental and Express Scripts, and then the Ithaca City School District for gap coverage. That is why the missing documentation is a critical piece of information for retirees to receive. The health benefit not only consists of medical coverage and its associated expense, but also of a straightforward and uncomplicated procedure for obtaining that medical and financial coverage. Retirees should not be faced with an increasing administrative burden, one that is especially onerous for retirees who are quite ill or elderly. What is needed to resolve the confusion and the frustration retirees are experiencing is a comprehensive written roadmap distributed to each retiree for processing gaps in coverage. This document, developed by the district and/or its consultant, should include, but is not limited to, such items as steps to be taken when an item formerly covered by the Blues is not covered by Medicare's Part F or D in order to get a provider or invoice paid, what forms, if any, to complete, what documentation, if any, to provide, who to send the claim to, how soon payment can be expected, how to check on the status of a claim submitted to the district, and any other items that would facilitate fulfillment of the district's obligation to satisfy any gaps in coverage. We respectfully request that the district develop the above described roadmap by year's end and distribute it to all current and future retirees. Thank you for your attention on this important matter.
Thank you.
Joan Capion.
Thank you.
I'm Joan Capione, and I too am here to talk about the health insurance, but just one small piece of it. The Hartford card that we got states that we have to use our social security number as our official policy number. So, Medicare tells us, do not use your social security number. They have changed hundreds of thousands of people's social numbers away from their social security number. We know it's a privacy issue, and yet we go to a provider and the clerk requires you to give it, at one point, the clerk said to me, we just won't treat you right now. You need to give this number, which I didn't want to give my social security number out. So it's just a frustrating kind of thing, and I just found out a couple days ago that one of the retirees somehow got Hartford, because she complained so much, to send her a new card that said, instead of it saying what your number is, your policy number, it says policy number, use social security number. This one says policy number, use your Medicare number. And Medicare pops right over, we know, to Hartford. But these people that we go to, the clerks that are doing the computer, they have to fill something in. On our card it says social security. They have to fill that in, we have to give that out. If the district would just require Hartford to send us all new cards, cannot be that big of a deal, that say use Medicare number, they would take that number and then we'd be done with it. Thanks.
Katrina Okama.
Good evening. I'm here also to talk about the healthcare issue for retirees. I want to double what Joni just said. Every healthcare provider I've gone to since February 1st has been astonished that we are using our social security number. I've tried, as Joan said, to use the Medicare number because we've been told we could, but none of them will process it because of the way all the computer systems are set up. So again, if you could lean on Hartford to allow us to use our Medicare number, that would be incredibly helpful. I'm also here to speak to what was supposed to be an equal or better coverage with a seamless transition. And as Denise's letter stated, maybe it's been that way for several. It's not been that way for myself or for my husband. And in order to help you understand what that really means, I'll give you a very brief example of what has been an extremely frustrating, time-consuming, stressful, aggravating process that began in January. I received a letter stating that a prescription that I'd been receiving and using successfully for 10 years under my doctor's care would not be authorized by Hartford. They would not pay for it until it was pre-authorized. Well, clearly I was surprised, I was alarmed, I was concerned, I was anxious, but I dutifully began that process. I was given 30 days, which really was less than 30 days because I was being notified the first week in January, and we began February 1st with Hartford, and it's only working days, so the clock was ticking. And as I began the process, it started to involve a lot of paperwork, a lot of phone calls. I'm not exaggerating, every single working day in January, I was on the phone dealing with this. I called ENV as I was instructed to do by the district to get help I'm getting tapes, I'm being told it's a 48-hour process for them to get back to me. When they finally do, I guess they're wonderful, but I didn't have the luxury of waiting for them to get involved, and at that point, it became very clear that I needed to be advocating for myself, that I needed to be in front of this process, I needed to be talking to all the people at Hartford, all the people in my doctor's office, the pharmacy, to make sure everybody's information was interfacing. There was all kind of faxes that were getting misplaced. It was just an incredibly overwhelming situation for something that had been no problem for me for 10 years. No problem at all. And here I'm thinking, oh, this is supposed to be seamless and as good as or better coverage. The process went from pre-authorization to denials to appeals. It was an enormous amount of paperwork for the doctor's office. In fact, my doctor's office told me that Hartford was asking for 2 to 3 times the amount of paperwork from them that other insurance companies were requiring. And they worked diligently with me to make sure they were filling out, they were adding extra letters to explain why I needed this particular drug. I was being the intermediary for everybody to make sure it was happening the way it was supposed to. And one of the most troubling and preposterous things to me was that Hartford was telling me that I had 3 other prescriptions, 3 other medications they wanted me to try and fail at before they would consider authorizing this medication that had been successful for me. I'm thinking, so what my doctor has prescribed for me, what works for me well, is not good enough. You as an insurance company have the authority to change this for me, or at least to say you're not paying for it. And then it's out of pocket for a person who's on a retired income. So, finally, after 20-some days of grueling procedure, they finally agreed to authorize me for 1 year. So we'll see where that goes. And to top it off, my husband never even received the courtesy of a letter from Hartford telling him he was also being denied on a prescription that he'd been on for a number of years. In early or mid-February, he goes to the pharmacy to pick up his prescription, thinking everything's fine, and the pharmacy notifies him that Hartford has denied paying for it. We're getting ready to leave town for a couple of weeks. He comes home, he calls Hartford, and they tell him it'll be a 30-day pre-authorization process, and we're thinking, here we go again. So we paid out of pocket for it and left town, and we're yet to be reimbursed because we don't even know how to go about it, as Denise mentioned. This whole time, I'm thinking, what about the retirees that don't have the ability to advocate for themselves? And at least I'm fortunate enough and healthy enough, and my husband is too, to work this process, as grueling and as frustrating and aggravating as it was. But what about the people that have slipped through the cracks, that you don't know anything about, that Hartford doesn't know anything about? This shouldn't have happened for us, and it certainly shouldn't be happening for those people. Thank you.
And Eileen Bach.
And if you don't mind, I'll stand back here rather than climb through everyone.
Sure.
I also am a retiree, here to speak about health insurance, and I'd like to follow up on 1 or 2 things that other folks have mentioned. The first has to do with providing your social security number at the doctor's office. When I had to do that, because I didn't want to announce it to everyone in the waiting room, I wrote it down on a slip of paper, slid it to the receptionist, who promptly, and I understand why she did it, but promptly read it back to me aloud to make sure it's correct. So much for privacy there. So Denise mentioned what we really need from the district is some sort of form with the steps you have to go through for reimbursement, what forms are needed to be completed, what documentation is needed, and what time frame there is. And I'd like to add one other step to that, and I think I can explain it best by giving you an example. Just a little comparison and contrast. When we were on Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I had a torn retina and was in Shanghai, and I had to pay for everything up front, which I did, I could go home immediately the same day and online submit everything to Blue Cross Blue Shield. I was reimbursed before the credit card bill with the thousands of dollars on it came through. It worked beautifully, no problem, no complaints, okay? A much smaller issue that arose with the Hartford, as you may know from when I spoke before, not that I expect you to remember, the Shingrix vaccine on Blue Cross Blue Shield is covered regardless of where it's administered. Under the Hartford program, because Medicare will not cover the Shingrix vaccine unless you go through a pharmacy, not your doctor's office. I was already on the waiting list for my doctor's office, number 25. I called Wegmans, my pharmacy, can I get on your waiting list? Well, I would be at number 600 something. So I decided to go with the doctor's office, which meant I had to pay out of pocket for the vaccine, not a large amount, not a big deal. I called the NV, they said, send us your paperwork, we will submit it to Hartford for you. A few weeks later, Hartford denied the submission because they said the paperwork was illegible. Apparently the fax machine, either theirs or ENV's, had put lines through it. You know, mail your paperwork to Texas, which I did. I was reimbursed, it wasn't that big a deal. However, it took weeks to do that. I can manage the small amount that the Shingrix vaccine cost me. So my question is this, and this is what I think you need to add to this form that you send out. Had I been unable to pay the bill, had it been thousands of dollars as it would have been for the torn retina, there's a 30-day grace period after which you're charged a fee. Or if you put it on a credit card, you're going to be charged interest. So if this paperwork is not processed through Hartford and through ENB, who pays that fee? Do we have to, as retirees now, pay that fee because the process is so much longer and there's so much more paperwork involved if it should go on? Does the district pay that? Does the provider swallow that? I think that needs to be spelled out. You know, hopefully it doesn't happen, but should that happen, you know, who's going to pay that fee? So I think there are a few more steps that we need to do to ensure that retirees are able to navigate this system, which is very much unwieldy as it is at the present time. At least that's been my experience. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak at this time?
I didn't put my name on it, is that all right? My name's Linda Slattery. My husband is a retiree. And I just wondered, something that we should all be aware of, that we made a trip to the emergency room, and the emergency room doctor called in a prescription to our pharmacy in Ithaca, Kinney, and Kinney called us and said that your insurance does not cover any prescription prescribed by an emergency room doctor, period. So that's important, I think, that we all should know. They said if I should contact our family doctor, of course haven't seen me, but then it's a, so we really should address that point, I think. Thank goodness mine was just to make me more comfortable, but if there's something more critical, you know, it would be a significant lapse there in our coverage. I'll just mention that probably was the one with the, first one about the mammogram that is, Medicare always covered once a year, but if you have a doctor, an oncologist who wants to have one a little bit sooner than that 1 year, Blue Cross Blue Shield had no question, and Hartford told me it's not covered. We just cover what Medicare covers. So that's another big lapse there.
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Appreciate it. Anyone else wish to speak?
I'm
Well,
sorry.
since you gave Robbie a passing grade, I'm gonna, yes, Ms. Bach, anything you say?
I'm gonna keep using that. Okay. This has to do with international insurance. As I think you know, one change is that we are allocated only 60 days worth of medical insurance when we're traveling abroad, whereas prior to that, Blue Cross Blue Shield says your body's covered wherever you are. Hartford says you have 60 days abroad. So I had the good fortune, or maybe not good fortune, to be asked to return to, this time to Hanoi, to take on a maternity leave position for 10 weeks. And my initial reaction was, ooh, great, I would love to go to Hanoi for 10 weeks. And then I went, oh, wait a minute, 10 times 7, help me with that. Okay. That's gonna go beyond the 60 days that are covered. I did not pursue that. However, should that arise again, what would I do? You know, how would I when I called the Hartford, they said essentially the clock starts again every calendar year. So this particular league started in February. It would not have started again, even if I came home within the 60 days. The clock, I believe, starts every calendar year. And I have to go back and look at my notes to be certain of that. But that is another issue I think we need clarified.
Oh, thanks for all the feedback. Anyone else? Right. All right, so no, thank you all. We'll do student reps and board responses. So I don't see, Chris is an LECS, so Ithaca High, go ahead, and then we'll do board response.
So many of our clubs are now starting to hold events. IHS Green Team held the Ithaca Falls Tournament this Saturday. Teams from 15 different schools, even one all the way from Detroit. In association with the International Club Serving Lunch, the tournament was very successful thanks to the Green Team members, NHS members, and the coaches from other teams.
The IHS math team held their second NIMOL contest of this year today. The NIMOL is a school-based math competition where teams throughout New York State compete for a chance to qualify for the bigger competition, MISMOL. After the first NIMOL, the IHS math team was placed as 7th in the state. Besides this, many other clubs are either preparing for or are participating in events, competitions, fundraisers, etc. Not only are the clubs fundraising, but classes are too, with the seniors having a AAA fundraiser past Saturday and juniors this Saturday. The AAA fundraiser for the junior class will be from 5 to 9 p.m. So please visit and support them.
And while some teams are still progressing late into the postseason, the majority of all fall sports have come to an end. And then winter sports consisting of basketball, alpine skiing, boys, women dive, hockey, indoor track, and wrestling have officially begun today. And then the teams are looking to get off to a strong start for a successful season. And in respect to fine arts, the orchestra here at IHS recently welcomed Mr. Fleischman on January 2nd, or will welcome him as their permanent teacher. So and then this past weekend, students in the IHS production successfully played Jury, which is the IHS version of the play named 12 Angry Men.
Thanks, Ithaca High. Board responses to anything, and then Laura.
Oh, just thanks to bringing all that information about Hartford to our attention, and it seems like something to kind of figure out some kind of little loose parts that maybe need some attention, so appreciate hearing what those are, so.
Where are we going?
Yeah, I too want to say I'm very, very sorry to hear the problems that people have experienced with health insurance. As most of you know in the room, I'm a retiree. I've been on the Hartford. I have had a seamless transition and never experienced any problems in the 2 years I've been on it. And I certainly am going to be asking a lot of questions of a lot of people right now. I only wish I'd heard about this before now, because I've been serving as a representative, as a retiree on the Health Insurance Advisory Committee. The only one of these issues that I heard at the last meeting was the one about the Social Security number, and it was mentioned that you could use your Medicare number. It sounds like that people are experiencing clerks not being able to accept that. We're going to be having another Health Insurance Advisory Committee meeting shortly. We just are in the process of scheduling it. But before that, I certainly am planning to get as much information as I can. But I really wish I'd heard about this before now.
Don't hold back.
Yes.
No, I mean really.
I have an
really
email
helps.
and
Right.
phone number that's published.
Right.
And
So we, Chris, go.
I just want to echo Moira's sentiment and just to know that we heard you, and I understand the vulnerability that you feel with this. This is serious, you know, extremely about your health care and, you know, your safety. So we definitely take this seriously. And I know Moira was going to be on this like a pit bull, but we do take this seriously, and we hear what you're saying. Jim, I want to thank you, you know, just for coming to the table with solutions and creating this. It's easy to come here and bash, and we know how football has been trending for many different reasons. But you definitely have my support. Anyone who comes with solutions has my support. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Sir, I apologize, I didn't write down your name.
Dinesh Guerra.
Dinesh. I apologize for that. I don't have an answer for you, and I don't wanna give you the wrong answer. You're
She
looking-
might have it, yeah.
But-
Patricia might have it.
I might.
Absolutely, because that kid was on the national news. And I've talked to his grandfather, to Jeremy Schuler.
Can't use any names of mine.
Okay.
So I'm on, New York State Board of Regents, New York State Department of Education. I'm no lawyer, I'm not our district council.
You're not responsible for the information you're about to.
There is no mention of a minimum age, there's a mention of requirements completed. And there are certainly, every year, students who graduate high school early. There are high schools that, around the country that are designed for students taking high school at an early age. The one that comes to mind is the University of Chicago Laboratory High School, where my dissertation advisor's wife, before she was his wife, started high school at 12.
High school or?
Started high school and graduated from the University of Chicago at the age of 18. So age is not an issue as far as entry into college.
And taking classes there.
Taking classes not as a matriculated student is not an issue,
Sure.
but to be accepted by a college, they get to say, you don't.
Absolutely, I agree with you. You agree on that part, right? That age is just a number. If you have the mantle to prove it, then, well, I'll give you the background.
Well, no, what, but not right
3
now.
minutes.
Yeah.
No.
3 minutes, no?
Yeah.
No.
I exhausted my 3 minutes.
No, yes.
All right.
That's offline.
There is not a minimum age set by New York State. I've seen a lot of variation. What we see more than people wanting to graduate early is people wanting to make use of our services for extra years. And there are regulations governing that too, who is eligible. And so that's set by the state. Sean's not here, but the district does not mention ages, anything other than New York State law. We don't circumvent New York State law.
Do you agree, is that what you have been communicating to me? Do you agree on her comments, or we are on a separate page?
I'd be
Separate
happy
now?
to talk with you.
Separate. But at least this one is on the record, that whatever
Well,
she said.
What New York State law
You said,
says.
yes. The rest I will take care of from there, because that's a very common and common sense kind of an answer, and I agree with that.
I appreciate common sense answers, Pat.
Yep.
Somehow I feel like this may come back to bite.
It could.
So that will happen somewhere else. So,
I mean, it's the truth.
So Aaron,
Absolutely.
Just for Denise, Joan, Katrina, Eileen, and Linda, I just thank you for coming. I have a medically complex child, and I go through this I know it's a full-time job managing those difficulties, and this country's healthcare system is broken, but I feel that, like Maura said, she can work with you and get on that committee. And if there's anything I can do, I'm happy to listen, because I live it. Jim, the football, thank you for talking, and you said, what can we do? I would like to know, I have 3 young children, and football scares me with head injury. So you want more support, but I wanna know, I just don't know how to introduce my kids to the sport, and I'm not sure I want to. So as you try to get more support, I think that's a question that's gonna come up.
We're prepared.
Okay.
Yeah.
other
Thank you.
questions, soccer as well.
Yeah.
But anyway,
And
that's
Hockey.
hockey, lacrosse,
Almost anything except
sitting
track and
sitting in
swimming.
class and tipping over, that happened.
May
So, but
may I
anyway,
make it, I believe that your son is a really, really successful, well-known football player.
Well, no, in our house he is.
Well, and I just did that because Rob is always surprised when I know anything about what's going on with football, but, congratulations, yeah. Well, I recognized your name when you signed up because I saw the article about your son, so.
Thank you.
So did I.
Yeah, but you would be expected to.
But thank you for all who brought issues regarding healthcare, regarding our systems. It's critical that we know early. Don't hold back. If there's any issues, please come. Let us know. Let our business office know. Well, certainly Moira know. But there are advisory committees where there's oversight, and we just need to make sure that indeed any issues that you have, if there's anything that is interfering with your experience that does not mirror Moira's experience, just because she's on the board doesn't mean she got special dispensation here. So so we expect it to your needs, for your needs to be met. So anytime you have any problems, please come to us. Come to our business office and our folks that are monitoring this and working on it every day. So we'll certainly try to deal with all those issues. Appreciate the letter and the detail on what is wrong and possible solutions. So we appreciate that. Jim, certainly appreciate your efforts. This has been a long-term issue, long-term project, I suppose. And obviously football or not has been very important to me, important to my experience at Ithaca and at Cornell. And one of the reasons I got on the board, but I never saw a football player on the board. So I guess I'm still the only Chris, there you go. That's why Chris's head is bigger than that. But
some days.
But and I played a long time and I never had a concussion. So I had my shoulder torn out, and other things. But if you want to, anytime, anything that we can do, certainly working with Samantha and our athletic department and the sports boosters, that's anything that we can do to help support you in your efforts. And congratulations to your son and your family for all that you do. So anything else right now? Because we do have a agenda.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And we'll just we'll let folks move around a little bit. Ms. Bach wants to go home. Bye, Eileen. See you later.
There we go. You're welcome.
But we will move on, and now with the consent agenda.
I'll move the consent agenda.
Second?
Second by Pat. Any questions on any of the items? Are we good? We're good? Questions, comments, 2 items, they were there. We are 6.
Yes.
We are 6. So move second to
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well,
We haven't asked.
Oh, we haven't asked. I was distracted.
right, that was why I was giving folks a chance to settle. So, but I think we're good on the consent, so all in favor, and that is everyone who is here. And Dr. Brown, you have information, comments, et cetera, for us that you are going to share.
I do. Thank you for the opportunity, Ms. Dainsley. Well, first, 2 things. First, it's been a while since we've met, and in that time, there's been a special, I want to say a holiday, Board of Education Appreciation Week, and we missed that since we last met.
Why am I not surprised?
So, but we don't want that opportunity to pass without us saying thank you for the work that you do. My team and I, we wake up every day thanking our, it's a blessing to have an opportunity to work with you all. This morning, Moira did something that you all do most every day. She spoke to the work that's happening in our school district so articulately that Lily and I didn't have to speak. And this was in front of a group of parents who had specific questions about everything from our math curriculum to our HVAC systems. And Moira was able to answer all of those questions in a way that helped them understand what we're doing and going forward. As I look around, each one of you knows the work of our district in that way. And I know we're going to talk later in the meeting about the NISBA convention that was in Rochester a few weeks ago. And what I've said since that, and we presented at that conference, is that any one of you could have done the presentation that we did that day as well or better than myself and or Sean. So it's a special gift that we have to have you all here. So thank you for the work that you do, and please know that we recognize it and we appreciate it. And the other item, we typically use this time to talk about special accommodations that have come in for our school district. A special one came in this morning, and we will be putting together some more formalized announcements. But I'm so happy to see Carlin and Jason in the room. They were on the phone. I'm hoping we're on the phone with some media representatives today. Newsweek, which is a rather reputable source, named Ithaca High School as the 48th best high school in the nation. And there are over 27,000 high schools in our country. The 48th best high school in the nation, the second ranked high school in New York State when it comes to STEM education. And that's pretty remarkable when we think about it. And that list includes private, charter, and magnet schools. And I will say the only school in New York State ahead of us is a magnet school in the Bronx, by the way. But thank you to our staff and to our amazing young people. That kind of recognition doesn't come by often. And to come by means that we've done some amazing work for a number of years. So thank you, Mr. Trumbull, Carlin Gray, to the young people and staff who've been a part of having us get such a beautiful recognition this morning. Thank you. That's all I have today.
That's all you have.
That's all I have.
All right. So we'll move on to school board business and overview of the new professional development model. Oh, Lily.
Good evening.
Lily.
How's everyone? Nice to see you all. I know, my goodness. Moira and I have spent a lot of time in this room together today. It's nice to see you all. Thanks for the chance to talk a little bit about our new professional development model that many of you are aware of. We want to make sure our community knows about as well. And I want to make an invitation to our board members to submit further questions so that we can be responsive in designing further sessions regarding this new professional development model. So carrying over from the past several years, we've really focused heavily on inclusion, culturally responsive practices, and innovation. And so that continues to be our main focus. Over the past several years, as you may know, we have had teachers on special assignment in silos, devoted solely toward STEM education, solely toward inclusion, solely toward English language learners, etc. And so instead, and they haven't been, or technology as well, and they haven't been devoted to particular buildings. But with your support, we have been able to transition to a new model in order to support every building in more substantive ways. So Tricia, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, that would be great. So as many of you know, we have this two-pronged model now that we're supporting. So we have our Master Educators of Inclusion, or MEIs, and those are administrator positions. They connect the Committee on Special Education meetings and work to the student experience, so they actually know the students and are working directly with those kiddos, and they're supporting professional development for the team. Instructional coaches for equity, inclusion, and innovation, they're teachers. They provide confidential support and training. Teachers opt into it, and we provide either teacher-centered or student-centered coaching cycles. Now, the ways in which they overlap, they provide job-embedded professional development. So we have two master educators one master educator sharing two buildings, and at the elementary level, and we have one master educator for inclusion at the high school and LECS. And our instructional coaches.
And what about DeWitt and Boynton?
At DeWitt and Boynton, we have one person sharing the two schools.
Okay.
Yeah. And each building has their own instructional coach for equity, inclusion, and innovation. So that allows us to provide job-embedded professional development in ways that we were never able to provide, right? So we're able to build those relationships with folks and then help them set goals and move the work forward. They engage in coaching cycles with teachers and with our paraprofessionals as well. It's non-evaluative support, and we also have folks providing standalone professional development. So, and Carlin is going to talk a little bit about how some of this looks in the actual high school and in the science department in particular, just so you can get a glimpse of what this actually looks like in action. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach out to you all and just gather any questions that you have about this particular model, and we'll design sessions throughout the year so you can get a sense of what this actually looks like, what our students are saying, what our teachers are saying, and what those experiences are like for folks. And we can talk a little bit about our evaluation measures for us to actually know if this is working really well, really well, and how. So with that, I'm actually going to transition over to Carlin. Oh,
Just
yes.
one question, should we, soon get a list of who are the people in each of these positions and where they are located?
Absolutely, I can do that this evening.
Okay.
All right, great.
It's not a secret, right?
It's not a secret, no.
Just,
not.
it's that football concussion thing, I'm just, we just need it written down.
It's not, yes, and you don't need to sit through board reports in order to find it.
Yes.
We'd be happy to provide that for you in one place. All right.
Hey everybody.
Hey, Carla.
Hi, Carolyn.
Hello. I'm not really a sitter, but I'll sit.
I don't have to.
So I realize how much information I put on this slide, but there are three sort of component parts to informing our teachers' practice, and then that, hopefully you can see at the bottom, is ultimately leading to the outcome, and particularly in science, but this actually is spreading to all subject areas, but actually science was one of the first ones to overhaul its standards in the last couple of years, to focus on student learning that's performance-based, that's aligned with student-centered learning in the classroom, that's constructivist. And so the sort of backstory on that is looking at the strands that sort of inform our teachers. And there's a sort of a white strand over to the side there, which is coming from the national or state place. And those are all hyperlinked, so if you're not familiar with those and you have access to this as a document, I'm sure you can click on these. But the next gen science standards informing our own state standards, which are huge overhauls of the standards that were there before, which were co-opted from the national standards. And then we have local and regional ways that we're informing our practices. New Visions is out of New York City, and that's hyperlinked there, and you can see the curriculum platforms that are supporting science teaching. We've got 12 of our 18 science teachers at the high school are New York State master teachers, and if you don't know about that program, it's professional development funded with a stipend per year. It's a really well-developed program through the state, but the focus primarily is on the new standards and how to teach those standards. And then we've got the Staff and Curriculum and Development Network from and through the state that has TSD BOCE's reps. So Carrie Brindisi, our science department leader, is working with them. And then over on the right is our embedded framework that Lily spoke of, which is looking at our science department meetings and PLC time, our secondary course redesign, and then our instructional coaching model, which has primarily our instructional coach at the high school was a secondary science teacher. So he's worked a lot with some of our science teachers, in particular those that were involved in the secondary course redesign, to address these standards and address huge shifts in how we're dealing and addressing student learning. And that is all.
So just to clarify, where does our master educators fit into this?
So I would say our master educator sort of fits above this because they're an administrator in our building, and that they're informing the CSE process, they're informing professional development as aligns with IEP goals, professional development as it aligns to just quality first instruction. So I didn't really work it into this. I was trying to show it as a particular content area teacher.
Yeah, so the New York State master teachers relationship to the
Yeah, so this is all very tricky. The New York State Master Teacher Program is a STEM-based program that came out of New York State in order to enhance and engage and help support STEM teachers in particular. And it's gone down to the elementary school level at this point, but the terms are confusing because we call our master educators, our staff master educators that are working with our inclusion, And we also have master educators that work on teacher evaluations. When the APPR came over, that was the initial name that we gave those people. The master teacher program is out of New York State, though, so
And
that's how you
there's-
can differentiate.
And there's stipends or coming through the.
Huge and
well,
very supportive.
fees.
Yeah, it's a very supportive program and it's very well developed. So again, you can click on the hyperlink and you can see what kind of professional development they offer. But it's a nice way to
Can we
support.
say the number? I mean, it's what,
Yeah, I
it's-
don't know because I never applied, but I think it's about $15,000 a year.
It is.
Yeah.
right.
We just announced that several more
Right.
of Ithaca City School District teachers, Sarah Arnold at ACS,
Yeah.
one of the elementary school teachers, as you said,
Yeah.
it's gone down to
Paula
elementary
Kill.
school.
Right, I was trying to recall the names, but
Yeah.
the new list was.
And they apply?
Yeah,
So
so-
it's competitive statewide?
Yep,
Sure.
you apply and it's a really elaborate and very sort of respected process where you go through and you do a model lesson and you go through several rounds of interviews, and then you sort of have a requirement in terms of the professional development that you go to, and they have lots of offerings and they recruit people to also offer that, so like it's sort of turnkey kind of training. But yeah, that's part of sort of our state and local support systems. But there's a lot of stuff that sort of all feeds into how we're supporting our teachers. But the instructional coaching model, I think, is as intense as it can get because it's somebody right there on the ground who's familiar with the standards, familiar with inclusive practices and culturally responsive teaching. And so helping to connect that back to the standards is really where the work is on the ground.
We introduced instructional coaching several years ago.
Yeah, I
But then
remember.
through budget issues, we had to back off some.
And we didn't have them initially at the high school during that time.
Right.
So this is the first time the high schools had the instructional coaching model. And this is somebody who's worked in science, but also was a tech person last year. And so a lot of the work is around increasing technology and how it can enhance instruction in the classroom as well, but also in this project-based learning arena of looking at large-scale guiding questions to drive units and looking at phenomenon that can drive units, like here's this problem in the world, let's address it and ask driving questions about how we can solve it.
And this is a choice, you have to rep,
Yep,
we don't
yeah.
have to have instructional coaches in this district, but through the community support,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
able to do this, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and because it's non-evaluative, it's a really nice process where somebody can really take a lot of risks with their instruction, whereas like when I'm in the classroom, the risk-taking feels different, right? So, and I meet on a regular basis with our instructional coach just to see what they're working on and to talk about not what they're working on with people, but just who they're working with and what they're working, what questions they're asking and how they're designing and redesigning curriculum.
So does a teacher ask to have an
Yeah, they can it's an opt-in
An opt-in.
process. And our instructional coach comes to our instructional leadership team and is a part of the leadership in the building. And really, we've asked our instructional coach to look at ninth grade, to start looking at the ninth grade experience at the high school and to sort of audit the ninth grade in terms of following a ninth grade student through the course of the day and seeing what their day is like. And I suggested, that's awesome, you should make a little tiny video blog about it as you go and talk about, if you've ever done that, it's probably emotionally and physically exhausting to go from, you remember going from college to high school,
high school?
yeah, so he's really working on making sure that we can get a sense of that ninth grade experience, and focusing on the ninth grade core classes that are Regents honors differentiated as a focus, because the high school is huge, right? So one person there, we've really asked for that to be the primary focus. Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay.
Is there more?
No, that is all.
Was that the last, that was.
You can play with the hyperlinks if you want.
That article about the New York State.
I really like to do that. so-
I know, yeah, I know.
so
The article about the New York State master teachers in our district is on our website, by the way.
Yeah.
Learn more about it.
Yeah.
How many total master teachers?
Total, including these four, I'll have to get you that number, but there's four that were most recently.
Yeah.
Paula Kills, Mike Cesari, Jen Emerson, and Sarah Arnold.
But a whole bunch of our
Yeah, we've had a
math
few.
teachers at the high school.
Yeah, I mean, I can
Right.
probably pull the high school numbers pretty fast, like Carrie and I pulled that number out of our brain, but we just have to go through each person and be like, yep, yep. And we also have people, the program's been around so long that they have, gone through an entire 4-year cycle already with the master teacher.
Thanks, Carl.
Yep, you're welcome.
Great.
Thank you.
Next is the step.
Yeah, we have more friends coming.
So we're gonna roll into
Yeah.
secondary science and Cornell STEP program. Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
We're happy to be here too.
Are you real life Cornell people or anything?
Real life Cornell people?
Well, go ahead.
I don't know if I am. I am, also excited to be here. I think I'm getting a little sick, so if I don't sound excited, that's why. It's also getting late. But I'm Ray Hayes, program advisor for the Science and Technology Entry Program.
I'm Kurt Sarsfield. I'm the assistant director for the program, and so I work on the programming and some of the grant management from our office on Cornell's campus.
And I'm Krista Sleet. I'm the director of the Public Service Center where the STEP is housed, and the director of the STEP grant, and I supervise the implementation of the grant.
Should clarify, as program advisor, I'm primarily in our partner schools, providing the more direct student services that Kurt's got to tell you about.
So Cornell STEP's mission is to support students who qualify as historically underrepresented in STEM or also qualify as low income to prepare for college and careers in science, technology, engineering, math, which actually I probably don't have to do that here because we've just been talking about STEM all night, and the licensed professions. STEP is a state-funded program. It's funded by the New York State Education Department. It's been around since 1986 in the state, but our program is just in its 5th year serving ICSD students. The program exists in colleges and universities around New York State. About 50 college campuses host a STEP program. So our goal, and the goal of STEP statewide, is to increase the percentage of marginalized students who are entering careers in STEM and the licensed professions. And we believe that a diverse group of students from these populations will be problem solvers in STEM and will develop the creative solutions for the future and things that haven't been thought of yet. So, to illustrate what we do to fulfill that mission, we have some numbers on the board to illustrate what we do, but mainly we support students in 3 areas. So we offer academic supports, which include in-school academic advising with Ray, after-school tutoring with Cornell University tutors who come to students' schools after school. I should also add that we serve students in 7th through 12th grade. So we're in DeWitt, Boynton, LACS, and at the high school. We offer SAT prep for juniors. We offer some Regents prep options for students to get ready for their Regents exams. We also offer career exploration as another bucket of our supports. So that includes once a month Saturday programming where students do career and college exploration. We support students exploring research through some partnerships on campus where they can be embedded in a lab. And then we also offer other types of internships that are not research related. And then lastly, we go to some conferences, some STEM conferences around the area. And finally, we have college readiness supports. So we support students in the financial aid process as seniors. We help them complete their FAFSA and we kind of answer questions about FAFSA and TAP which come up. We work with them to do college research. We go on college visits around the state. And then 11th and 12th grade, Ray is really working heavily with students to support their college application process. Ultimately, our goal is to support students as they create individualized plans for them to maximize our menu of supports. So we want them to take advantage of the supports we have and help them figure out the best way to do that.
So we are in year 5 of the STEP grant, and we're preparing for the next 5 years. Throughout that time, we survey students and parents on feedback on how the program is going, and we want to use that to inform our next 5 years. As you can see, some of the positive feedback we've gotten is college trips. That number's up to 27 now, actually. We were at Corning Community College and Elmira College just yesterday. So the students definitely like visiting the schools around New York State, and seeing what their options are, getting to a feel of what the campus life might be like. Another feedback is the STEP Saturdays. So that's where we do a lot of our career exploration, a lot of hands-on activities with bringing in people from different STEM and career fields. The FAFSA workshop was a big hit with the seniors. The parents loved being able to learn about the financial aid process for higher education, and then actually being able to complete that application on site with us, as well as the TAP application if they have time. And then the one-on-one advising with myself, having someone in the schools dedicated to their higher education success full-time is a benefit to the students. Some constructive feedback we've gotten is developing I don't know if I should talk to everybody.
He's used to working the room.
Developing a stronger collaboration with BOCE. So STEP is not just the STEM fields, it's also the licensed professions. So encouraging our students to try out the BOCE's programs so that they can graduate with some of those certifications. Internship variety, so up to this point, most of our internships have been in biology wet labs, but we serve up to 109 students, all with different interests, and our hope would be for each one to have a meaningful and relevant internship experience before they go to college. So having a wider range of internship opportunities and choices in different fields. Summer employment, the kids want money. So we have, I've done work with helping students fill out their YES applications for summer jobs, but we're looking to see what other opportunities there are for our students, and if there's any way we can provide perhaps some financial compensation for them, especially over the summer. And then the academic timeline is something that our parents have suggested, and just some of the parents are worried about what they should be doing during certain times of the academic career of the student. So instead, should I really be thinking about college in 7th grade? What am I supposed to be doing junior and senior year for our students? So there are some, I know IHS publishes a handbook and there's resources online, but perhaps a more interactive way for STEP to communicate that. One suggestion was a Google Calendar, which I think is a good idea. So we're going to work on that as well. And not to say that the positive things won't be improved as well. We want to have more personalized trips, I guess, for our college students. So there's a collegiate STEP in university. So students in STEP, they go to certain SUNYs or colleges that have a collegiate STEP program. We like to bring in students from C-STEP to talk to our students while they're there. Even touching on the expanding the internship variety, also expanding the career exposures. So branching out from STEM a little more, and for example, for December we're going to have some athletic trainers speak to our students, and that's a real popular one amongst them. So yeah, improving everything.
Way to go.
Yeah,
And you're reaching a broad audience, you're on TV, so.
Okay. This is also my slide. So looking into the next 5 years, some highlights that we want to focus on as far as goals go. as really being more entrenched into the district. We've had great support from administrators and teachers, but we want to make sure that all teachers know that they can come to us if they have students that might need some extra supports. And just working with district staff on reaching common goals, especially when it comes to equity. Working with school counselors is a big one. I've talked to Corey Mitchell at the high school, because it's something he's been looking at with 9th graders coming in to IHS. But with students in our program starting in 7th grade, it's a great time to speak with them about course selection and how that sets up your future into high school and beyond, really. So working with the school counselors on that. I want to make sure I go in order here. Sharing student successes and student stories, that's one of my favorite things to do. Just celebrating our students, bringing the culture of love into STEP, and making sure our students know that we recognize them. We're celebrating all the good work that they do. We have some amazing students in our program, so to continue to celebrate their work. Understanding participation and goals. So, bless you. So, why are students applying to be in STEP? When they're in, why are they participating in certain programs that we offer, and why there's some things that they're not participating in. So, obviously, in meeting with students, we have these discussions with them, but after having those discussions, seeing what we can do to kind of overcome some barriers possibly to participation. And then, as I mentioned before, expanding the internship opportunities, I think is going to be huge. I think a lot of families are excited about the opportunities we can provide just with our connection with Cornell. But being able to get every student some internship that they're really going to be excited about is something I'm excited about working on in the next 5 years. I think that's the last slide. Questions?
Questions, Ann, go ahead.
No, I just had a question on one of your things here, which is understanding student participation, and that's something I've actually wondered about a lot with some of our programs, is how do you identify students that actually might be interested in this? How do they find you, and how long do they stay with you?
So I think Ray can speak to kind of how he recruits, because I think that's one thing that I'm proud of with our program and that's unique. But one thing that's cool about our program that I just love to plug is that students, if they start with us in 7th grade, they can stay in the program through 12th grade without reapplying. So it's really a cool, unique way. We're able to kind of support them through that transition and get to know them over the long term. But as far as recruitment goes.
Yeah, so recruitment, a lot of it comes from people in the schools, you know, suggesting students to me, and then I'll go meet with the students and tell them about the program. So each school, I kind of have my go-to person that'll share students with me.
So is that the go-to person, like someone who's teaching in STEM, or is the guidance counselor, the principal? Like
It could be anybody. Yeah, it doesn't have to be STEM, like a science or math teacher, but that's something that we're hoping to work on, is making sure those teachers do know that they can recommend students to STEM to be part of our program.
And typically what we've done is met with grade level teams, either 6th grade teams at the end of the year, and told them a little bit about the program, who do you think would be a good fit, and then Ray has those names kind of queued up when he starts the school year in 7th grade to start building relationships. Pizza's effective, so getting some like.
Do you send out notices to them and invite the kid, or?
Yeah, so we do some personalized, an invitation to meet with Ray. He meets some students just friends of friends, which is a great way to connect and like kind of play off their network. And then also we do some, just so that we're able to share with everybody, we try to get the word out also through like principals, through PTA listservs, backpacking, letters.
Probably the pizzas.
And Maura, go ahead.
Actually, that was the question I was gonna ask, so.
We'll go Pat and Chris.
Okay, just a couple of other questions. If they don't join in 7th grade? Are you bringing kids in 8th, 9th? How far up does it go?
Yeah, even accepting 12th graders who really want to be part of the program and want to guarantee that they'll have that support throughout, you know, the college application process.
Mhm.
So almost any time between 7th and 12th grade, we can.
And we realize that students might not voice that they want to be involved in 7th and 8th grade, so maybe the transition up, I know Ray's done some, worked with Corey Mitchell quite a bit to connect with some students who might not have been in the program, but might be a good fit as they are in 9th and 10th grade. So, no, and really we think of our supports as kind of a menu, and so if somebody can dip in and access our supports at any step in the process, we're happy to do that.
And are you at capacity? Do you have more capacity? Do you hope to grow? How do you feel about the size of the program?
I feel I mean, Ray and I have discussed this as we look ahead to the next 5 years of supporting students. We feel we can support a few more. I think we're at pretty much a sweet spot with like a bit of room to grow. So when we applied for funding, we applied to support 123 in the next 5-year cycle, which would begin next school year. So we feel that that's a reasonable amount for him to connect with when he's out in the schools, and then we kind of have different, 109 students aren't jumping on multiple buses to go on college trips, so, we find that we're still able to, we're not turning anybody away for a college trip, we're able to support everybody who wants a research internship, who wants one, so.
And as far as who you're serving, underrepresented students in STEM, low-income students, female students, I assume, or?
Well, our grant does not include females in the underrepresented
So they would have to be
category.
part of
So they would
one
need to
of the
be,
other
they
categories.
would need to, that's on our minds, but we're not able to like use that as a selection criteria based on our grant funding.
Okay.
And
As the mother of a middle-class child who went into electrical engineering, the child, not the mother. But she did have a lot of supports already at the high school with the Project Lead the Way, which was a really good pre-engineering program. But I assume that you're working with these different programs and the different New Visions ones. I've been at Cornell for 20 years, I didn't know about this, I've been on the board for 8, I didn't know about this. This is great. Thanks for coming today.
That's part of goal number 1, just being more known. Yeah, part of STEP, we don't put on all the like Saturday events just ourselves. A lot of it is connecting with things that already exist in the community. So if guys a lot of support, is one of the top STEM high schools that we just started. So just connecting our students with access to those things.
Sure. Chris, go ahead.
She stole my question. I wanted to know about capacity and where we were at.
I asked 3 questions.
You did.
I should have left one for you.
I was waiting to see how he navigated the whole, young women in programs.
Well, that's
Oh, this is
fair,
great.
that's fair. I think about this much more.
Other questions? I'm not sure I heard the source of the grant funding is from.
The New York State Education Department.
Oh, okay. Well, no, right, it's a matter of, okay, the grant was available and you got it, which is great, and hopefully there's the next 5 years, and when we're always looking at these programs, how can we continue them beyond whatever may happen at state ed, which we
Hopefully
always.
there's someone in the building to sign the form.
That was probably a point that we're gonna get to later in the meeting, but, right, but we don't let Albany stop what we're trying to do, and so we're, certainly, very happy that, had the 5-year grant, and you're applying for another 5 years, it's not.
It went in the mail last Wednesday afternoon.
Okay.
We also just had
this
a
is
site visit from the State Department representatives, from our program
Okay, great.
representatives, and it was all very positive. So,
Yes, it should be.
fingers crossed, that means that will translate to the next round of funding as well.
Oh, that's correct. No, I just was wondering about source of funds, and just, how many adults are involved? Is it
Two of
mainly?
us full-time. So Ray is in the schools, and he shows up to
Embedded.
LACS, on Monday, DeWitt on Tuesday,
Right.
point. So Ray, both of us are full-time, but then I'm working on some of the other, setting up programming, connecting with graduate students about internships to support our students, setting up some of those things, and
Oh, it's-
managing.
Right, I'm just trying to
behind
make
the
sure
scenes.
everybody realizes, really, Ray, you're out there, and it's.
He's the-
there's-
Pretty important. He's the guy.
And, we appreciate
Big
that,
deal.
right,
Yeah.
And, even when you're not feeling well, you're very important.
Yeah.
So, no, it's great.
Thank
Any other questions for our guests? Thank you for coming down the hill to see us.
Thank you.
Outstanding program, we appreciate it very much.
Oh, thank you, happy to be here.
What next?
Oh, my goodness.
There's some policy stuff here, so policy folks, yes, please.
Sure, okay. Well, we're moving into the 8,000 series, which is kind of a potpourri of policies, and some of which we have recently updated, and hodgepodge. That's actually what I wanted to say, was hodgepodge.
You're the literary person,
Yeah.
I'm the historian.
Yeah.
I don't sugarcoat it.
But some of the, which have been revised pretty recently, and then some have been very long, like the fire drill policy, which hasn't been revised since 1974. But what we are proposing is to delete it, because in fact, it is now part of the safety plan. And so we don't really need it, and also some of the specifics of the state education law regarding drills has changed. So basically, we're just doing housekeeping with this to take it out as a standalone policy.
To clarify, it does not mean that we will no longer have fire
Yeah.
drills, because fire drills are mandated by New York State, and they will be found in your unified.
No, in the safety plan.
In the safety plan.
Yeah.
In the safety plan, which each school has on file.
Yeah, it's not that code of conduct
The
thing.
unified code of conduct.
No,
You could put it there, that would be
it's in
interesting, right?
this,
Everything.
the district-wide safety plan.
District-wide safety plan,
Thanks, Seymour.
yes.
So when we take it out, the policy manual will be that much. thinner.
Yeah, just gonna leave like one page thinner.
It's an
And
efficiency.
So we don't have to read all this because it's gonna come out, but it is a first reading, so we
Right,
can't
first
just
reading.
take it out. Do we have to look at this twice before we take it out, or can we just?
I don't think so. I mean, but except for who, I guess Sean put it on the
But
agenda
Sean's
for a
not-
first reading,
Deletion.
deletion of policy.
I'm seeing an MTC, so.
Okay.
I
Well, how about I move it for a first reading and deletion?
well, I don't think, we don't wanna
First and
delete it on
second.
the first read.
We don't?
Yeah, procedurally,
I mean,
you have to first read.
We can
I don't
adopt
know.
something on the first read, why can't we delete it on
Well,
the
I,
first read?
well, I'm
No,
just
no,
gonna
let's-
say,
yeah.
3 people are not here,
That's true.
and
Okay.
also, I do think people should read things before they delete them, because you should know what you're giving up as well as what you're taking on. Young people, that's a lesson for life. When it's gone, and,
That's kind of a history thing, right?
But it's not truly going away because now it can be found in a different location.
it's going into a different location.
It is already in a different location,
But I don't
with
think
different wording.
it's different wording.
It's different wording because
Oh.
it reflects changes in the law.
So here's also a historical document, this is what fire drills were supposed to be like in 1974 when I was in high school.
Yes.
That's, and I survived that, so, when I was there.
They were not dangerous.
So Maria, did you move this?
I'll read it, I don't think we need to read the
Well,
legal reference, we can
No,
just.
no,
you
just.
move it for
Move it for
For
a first reading.
I was gonna,
And I will second it for a first reading.
Okay,
well, I'm gonna have Moira go ahead and,
read it.
no, just
No.
move it.
I move, policy, 8132, fire drills for a first reading,
For deletion.
for deletion.
Second.
Any other comments? All in favor? So this will come back, right?
Yes.
See, that's, we doing literacy earlier today? See, that's,
Yeah,
see,
we're doing literacy.
I'm looking for things I don't have to read, so that's, right, exactly. So we'll see that next time, and overview of the New York State School Board Association Annual Conference. Did, Dr. Brown, and you went there, and you spoke.
I enjoyed our time together. And I would love to hear from Ann, who was one of our voting delegates.
That's
So,
true, yeah.
We started and ended the conference. We had the first session and the first slot, and where we talked about our work, and then Ann stayed on till the end of day, Saturday?
Saturday.
Saturday.
Midday, yeah.
So, cool. The big highlight for you.
Yeoman's work by Ann at the convention conference.
Interesting.
Ann, go ahead.
Yeah, well, enjoyed your talk, Dr. Brown, excellent. Also, I attended several really interesting sessions that weren't part of voting, the business part of the meeting. One on therapy dogs, which was actually quite interesting. I went to a session on Foundation Aid, which was very useful in terms of the history of that. And the business meeting is the business meeting in which I think there are about 220 people representing about 700 districts there, and then so it met its quorum barely, and there were numerous issues that were. It's really a matter of kind of people trying to decide what are the issues they want the association, New York State School Board Association, to concentrate on and advocate for on behalf of the school districts. So they're kind of asking for advocacy guidelines from these various districts. And, you know, there weren't particularly, nothing particularly controversial. We did receive from them, I passed it along, how all the votes went, you know, where they all went on some of the issues. There were some issues on e-cigarettes and what kind, you know, what NISBA was kind of, there were some people wanting to know whether or not they want NISBA to advocate on that issue, how much should schools get involved with that. There were about 4 resolutions pertaining to special education, one of which was, that was kind of the one really controversial part of the whole thing was at the very end. There was, somebody brought a very vague resolution, and then somebody kind of amended it with something that was so complicated that in the end, it was tabled till next year. But that's something I anticipate will return, and I think has to do with some issues that have taken place in downstate. So yeah, that was the basic, you know, it was not a particularly controversial meeting in terms of the votes that we made. Our legislative advocacy committee met prior to the meeting and talked about kind of the ones piece by piece. And if you're interested, we'll put that on, that'll be on the agenda for our next legislative advocacy committee, and we'll be going through what some of the particulars were that we discussed.
Thank you, Ann. And what else? Was there anything else there?
I was there.
There you go, Mark.
But not for all that long. But I was there for Dr. Brown's session, and it was just, gets better every time.
Yeah, I like to do that, yeah.
And then we had a great opportunity to just network with people from other districts.
Exactly.
We talked to a bunch of people who are doing capital projects with Tetra Tech, and so that was interesting about some of their issues that they were experiencing. So, I mean, that's one of the very nice parts of the conference is to get to talk with people from other districts.
Throughout the state.
Throughout the state, yeah.
There's certainly commonalities, but there's many differences as well.
Right.
And we find quite a bit that they aren't quite where we are.
Yes.
Wherever that is. I think you find that Ithaca is certainly a resource for a lot of districts. You know, how did you do this? How are you really trying to do that, or this, or and we say, yeah, yes, we are. But for anything else, Maureen?
Well, I would piggyback on this to say that on Saturday, Eldred and I went up to Syracuse and to a workshop sponsored by Central New York School Boards Association on leadership for board members, and we both found it absolutely outstanding. Really prompted for me a lot of reflection, and so Eldred and I are proposing that we might bring the presenter down to do this presentation for the full board and also with administrators. And then when I mentioned this at the PTA council meeting this morning, it was suggested that maybe PTA leaders would like to participate, and I could see this really creating a great opportunity for people to have really valuable conversations with people that they don't necessarily get to talk to much.
And they are from Syracuse? Or it's a
And
Syracuse?
it's the presenter is from the Manufacturers Association,
That's right,
which has a
right.
very close relationship with the Central New York
Right,
School
exactly.
Boards Association.
Same building.
Same building, and presenter was excellent, and both Eldred and I were really quite glad we went.
There you go. It was a Saturday.
And it
You
was
took
a Saturday morning.
Took a Saturday and went up, so we appreciate that. It was Saturday, I didn't go, so. Gosh knows, some of us could need some training in this leadership thing. So,
So I just have
Go ahead,
one
Ann.
last thing to add, in terms of where some of that information from the New York State School Board Association, one of the sessions that I went to was on foundation aid and general funding for the school, and it was helpful because last Friday, I guess, I was invited to be participating in a roundtable with some of the assembly folks on foundation aid. So it was one of those things where it was like directly having gone to the conference, I was able to get the kind of information that I was then able to utilize in doing our.
and have answers for folks the next, Good time.
I felt I had a basic understanding
Sure.
to be at the table, so.
I was there, but I did head back on Friday, frankly, to take part, because I told folks at work I wasn't gonna be at work on Friday. And Dr. Holly's Professional Development Day here. I had not had the opportunity to really do essentially a whole day, was able to be here in the afternoon to see what we're doing in our district, that probably a lot of districts are not doing. But for me, the conference was more of very similar to others, but it was striking that that what stood out was who wasn't there, mainly leadership in the state of New York, state ed, because there is no one there. It's great that some functions of state ed are trying to work. We rely on them for some things. If you're looking for state ed to provide us the solutions for everything that our kids need in the classroom, as I've always said, those solutions, they're here. We don't really, we deal with state ed, but, our best solutions really come from this community and our students. And so that hasn't changed. And if they may get a commissioner sometime, that's not really gonna affect what we do. So it was.
Yeah, I just put, last Friday, I was at the monthly meeting of representatives for each of the component districts of our BOCES. We
Right.
have it up at BOCES. And Jeff Mattson, the superintendent of BOCES, showed us a organizational chart for New York State education with, in yellow highlight, all the empty positions. And it was quite striking, a whole line of yellow of,
Exactly.
people who are not there.
Department heads,
Yeah, yeah.
right, it's not just one person at the top, but
Yeah.
swaths of people that are not there. So, we can just do what we want, right, that's right, it's, within state law that already exists, but anyway, it's, but we always know that, I mean, it's not state standards are not what we look to meet and good, it's always, Ithaca standards were always different. And so we'll continue to do that. And I think that has proven to be a successful goal of this district, is to be above and beyond. So anyway, but eventually they'll, as long as that part of state ed that is approving our building projects in short order, that's about all I'm going to ask right now. So anyway, anything else regarding that day or anything? So good. So there's, and now there's an authorization to send a letter to New York State representatives, which I have here.
Right,
Do
so.
you want to speak to that?
Yes, so I'd like to move that we send a letter of thank you to Assemblywoman Lifton, to Senator O'Mara, and also to Governor Cuomo for the support for our and eventual passage of legislation that will permit us to establish a health insurance reserve. So we really do appreciate the fact that our legislators sponsored it, and we appreciate the fact that the governor eventually signed it. So I think the sample letter that's in board docs is to Barbara Lifton specifically, but will be a comparable one to Senator O'Mara, and then also to Governor Cuomo, with a slight tweak in language for that one.
Okay.
Since he signed it as opposed to sponsoring it.
There you go. So I have the one for Assemblywoman Lifton in front of me, which I did sign. So this is a letter you want to go out.
That's right.
There's a lot of information in the second paragraph. I mean, you want that part of it? I'm not sure the governor knows what total OPEB liability has been reduced by 73 million means.
But it's been reduced, that's a good thing.
You know, where did that 73 million go? Oh, no, listen. Other post-employment benefits, OPEB.
Do you think we should spell
Other
it out?
post-employment benefits.
Should we spell it out? Because we can. I'm not.
Well, no, I
can
didn't.
more than happy to certify the
I didn't
letter.
write it. Did Kate write it?
Yeah.
For those in the audience, Kate is the attorney for the district, and so that's, you get very legal language. So I did sign it, but that's approved, that's good, I mean.
Do we need to vote on this motion?
I
guess so.
believe, yes, you do.
I move it, but I need a second, so.
I'll second it, I'll let Aaron second it.
Have you read the letter? Has everybody read it? I mean, is it okay?
Yeah.
And that would include the tweaks for the other two people that would receive.
Right. I'm good with the letter, but you know, they may question some of the numbers, or they may be information for them. And I'm sure they, you know, this is accounting GASB stuff, and so this gets into.
But if we're educating them, isn't that a good thing?
No, that was part of our rationale. It's like, this was the information that we used that we put before them when we were actually advocating with legislation. So, I mean, of course, they've got hundreds of other things that they.
Right. But it's reducing a future liability. I mean, so that's, but it's huge.
And if they don't understand it, they're not gonna tell that to us.
But but we actually.
It's passed.
That's right.
It is a good thing, it is a very good thing.
So folks should understand, this brackets the meeting. We heard first thing this evening from retirees that we're having difficulties with our self-insured healthcare program for them. But we're working very diligently to make sure that does work, and it is seamless. But yeah, there's many employer healthcare systems. You go through Medicare first, and then it's supplemental insurance. And just to not use Medicare as a part of that, really, we're paying a lot. We're double paying for healthcare. It still is excellent healthcare, as Moira, you can attest. But it's really, and making some changes like that saves the local taxpayers over a period of time. It will be $73 million. It does not in 1 year, but over time for the cost for the district. That $73 million that would have gone to them for very, very, very platinum plus healthcare, but still excellent healthcare, but that's $73 million over the next several decades. They can go into programming, go into salaries, go whatever we do. So we have to do consistently, we have to consistently look for ways to try to come up with innovative solutions to maintain our funding for programming, for salaries. That 70% of our budget is people. And so we have to figure out a way to maintain our people so we can do the programming, so we can have instructional coaches, and we can do everything that we do in this district. So it is not insignificant that Barbara Lifton and Senator O'Mara and frankly, finally, Governor Cuomo signed it after a few years. So that last piece in order to make us have the ability to manage that self-insured program in the district. So it is a huge job that Amanda does and folks in the business office that we've taken on, but it has significant benefits. All right, so we vote on it?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess, maybe we can vote on that now, since I said all. All in favor? That everyone, and that will cover all the letters that will eventually go out. Any other discussion items? While you're checking the clock?
I am checking.
It's,
I
No,
was here
I mean-
this morning at 9 o'clock for a meeting. Yes.
No, I mean, so we're before, it's not even 9 o'clock yet,
Yeah, right.
we're not 1 o'clock in the morning. But I didn't know whether you're looking to see whether you had time to say anything.
I got that more to say.
All right, Dr. Brown, do you have anything else?
I'm done. I'm good. Thank you.
And you see the dates upcoming, and Tricia keeps us up to date on all that. Any questions, any changes? Without objection, we are adjourned, and students can go do stuff, like get their singing.